fear the dark, but in the case of Donald Harvey, the real horror lived in the fluorescent hum of a hospital hallway. He wasn't the monster under the bed. He was the man fluffing your pillow. To understand how a serial killer survives for 17 years, you have to understand the history of hospital hierarchy on PubMed Central. In 1970, Donald Harvey began working at Marymount Hospital in London, Kentucky. He was 18 years old. He was the golden boy of the night shift. While doctors were busy with prestige and nurses were burdened with paperwork, Harvey was the one who held the patient's hands. He was the one who cleaned the bedpans. He was the invisible man. He learned the layout of the pharmacy, the lack of security on the medicine cabinets, and most importantly, he learned that people expect death in a hospital. His first victim, Logan Weaver, wasn't a mercy kill. He was difficult. Harvey's internal monologue shifted from "I want to help" to "I have the power to stop the noise." We'll explore the psychology of healthcare serial killers via the FBI's Behavioral Science Unit. Harvey didn't stop at pillows. He moved to oxygen tanks, turning them off just enough to cause brain damage, then rescuing them to look like a hero. When he wasn't caught, the God complex took root. In 1975, Donald Harvey left the small-town rumors of Kentucky for the sprawling concrete labyrinth of the Cincinnati VA Medical Center. This wasn't just a change of scenery, it was a graduation. In Kentucky, he was a novice using pillows and oxygen tanks, crude, physical, and risky. In Cincinnati, he discovered the poisoner's pantry. The VA was a treasure trove of unsecured chemicals. Harvey began spending his breaks in the hospital library, studying toxicology and pharmacology. He wasn't looking to heal. He was looking for the sweet spot, the exact dosage of household toxins that would mimic a natural cardiac arrest. He began stockpiling arsenic, cyanide, and lead acetate in his locker, hidden behind his spare uniforms. The VA was a treasure trove of unsecured chemicals. Harvey began spending his breaks in the hospital library, studying toxicology and pharmacology. He wasn't looking to heal. He was looking for the sweet spot, the exact dosage of household toxins that would mimic a natural cardiac arrest. He began stockpiling arsenic, cyanide, and lead acetate in his locker, hidden behind his spare uniforms. This is where the story gets truly dark. Harvey didn't just want them dead. He wanted to watch them change. He began a series of experiments that would last for a decade. He would stir arsenic into the bedside soups of patients he found annoying. He wanted to see if the slow buildup of heavy metals would be caught in routine blood work. It never was. He began injecting cleaning fluids and petroleum jelly directly into IV lines. He described the rush of watching a patient's skin turn blue, cyanosis, as their lungs began to fill with fluid. His killing spilled outside the ward. When his partner's parents, the Stevens, became burdensome, he poisoned their food. When a neighbor, Helen Metzger, crossed him, he put arsenic in her pie. To Donald, the world was just one big hospital ward, and he was the only one with the cure. One of the most chilling aspects of this 12-year stretch was Harvey's relationship with the nurses. He was known as the hardest working man in the VA. While the doctors were baffled by the spike in mortality rates in Sector 37, Harvey was the one comforting the grieving families. He played a psychological game. He would intentionally induce a code blue just to be the one to help the nurses perform CPR. According to case studies on healthcare serial killers from MIT, this is a classic hero complex. He wasn't just playing God by taking life. He was playing God by trying to save it. He became so trusted that nurses would often ask him to check on patients they were worried about. unknowingly sending the wolf directly into the fold. How does a man kill dozens of veterans in a federal facility without being caught? We look at the cultural deference in 1980s medicine. In that era, the hierarchy was absolute. If a doctor didn't order a toxicology screen, no one else dared suggest it. Harvey exploited the comfort care loophole. He targeted the elderly and the terminally ill, people whose deaths wouldn't trigger an autopsy. He was a master of the natural death disguise. He would wait for a patient to have a minor setback, then use that as cover to administer a lethal dose of cyanide. By the time the body was cold, the medical records already had a plausible explanation written in ink. He wasn't just a killer. He was a ghost haunting the very system meant to protect our veterans. March 1987. John Powell is dead, and the hospital is ready to file the paperwork. But Dr. Brian Hollins lingers over the body. As he opens the chest cavity, a faint, sweet maraschino cherry scent wafts into the room. In the world of forensic pathology, that bitter almond scent is a siren blaring. It is the signature of cyanide. Suddenly, this isn't a medical failure. It's a crime scene. Detectives swarm the VA. They aren't looking for a doctor. They are looking for who held the cup. They find their man in Donald Harvey, but they expect a one-off mercy killer. They have no idea they've just pulled the thread on the most prolific killing spree in American history. When police raided Harvey's apartment, the air went cold. They found jars of arsenic, jugs of industrial cleaner, and the death diary. It wasn't a journal of guilt, it was a ledger of efficiency. Harvey hadn't just been killing, he had been perfecting it. The confession was a circus of the macabre. Harvey didn't just admit to the crimes, he bragged. He took investigators on a grand tour of the hospitals, pointing at doors and reciting names, dates, and dosages from memory, like a proud museum docent. That one took 3 tries, he'd say. That one went fast. As the numbers climbed from 30 to 50 to 87, the public realized that for 17 years, a wolf hadn't just been at the door, he had been tucking the sheep into bed. Harvey thought he was the master of fate, the angel who decided when the light went out. But in 2017, the lights went out for him in a way he never saw coming. Inside the Toledo Correctional Institution, the invisible man finally became a target. Harvey thought he was the master of fate, the angel who decided when the light went out. But in 2017, the lights went out for him in a way he never saw coming. Inside the Toledo Correctional Institution, the invisible man finally became a target. A fellow inmate, a man with nothing to lose, slipped into Harvey's cell. There were no poisons here, no pillows, no mercy. It was a brutal physical reckoning. The man who had spent decades watching people die in silence spent his final moments in a desperate, screaming struggle. The angel of death was beaten into the very dirt he had put 87 others into. Today, every time you see a nurse scan a barcode on a medication or a background check run on a hospital janitor, you are seeing the ghost of Donald Harvey. He wanted to be a god. Instead, he became a cautionary tale, a reminder that in the halls of healing, the greatest danger isn't the disease, but the man holding the tray. History doesn't remember him as a savior. It remembers him as the ultimate predator, who proved that sometimes the person you trust most is the one you should fear the absolute most. Donald Harvey was a master of staying invisible in plain sight. But he wasn't the only one. While Harvey stalks the wards of Ohio and Kentucky, another angel of death was working with even more chilling precision, using the very drugs meant to restart hearts to stop them instead. If you found the case of Donald Harvey disturbing, you aren't ready for the story of Charles Cullen. He didn't just kill dozens. Some investigators believe his true victim count exceeds 400, making him potentially the most prolific serial killer in human history.